The KJ Today Show presents the Can't Commit to a Book Club with executive producer Johna. This is where I get to interview some of your favorite authors and ask them questions about all things bookish. Welcome to the Can't Commit to a Book Club with me, executive producer Johna. This show is sponsored by the KJ Today Show. I have with me author Ann Shepphird. Hi, Ann. Thanks for coming on the show.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
How you doing?
I'm doing well.
Yeah. Before we started recording, you told me that you were a cat lover, and you told me that in your email earlier today, and I was like, oh, now I absolutely have to talk to her. Because I also have a cat, and my co-host on the KJ Today Show has 5 cats, so...
I saw that on the website.
Yes.
Yeah. We limit ourselves to 2. My husband and I say there's 2 of us, we're allowed 2 cats.
Yeah, I just have the one because he's my first pet, so I was like, I'm not gonna overwhelm myself with two or more. I'm gonna take it slow. I'm gonna have one.
That's good. And
he's enough for me.
Yes.
He's ridiculous. He's an orange cat also, if that tells you anything about his personality.
Yes. They're almost all boys. Yes.
Yes. Actually, his mom was a full orange cat.
Wow. Yeah, that's rare.
Yeah. So he's orange and white, and he's got a little mustache right here.
Yeah, I spent about 15 years, volunteering for a cat rescue group called Maine Coon Adoptions here in California. And I wrote the ads, hi, I'm Skipper, adopt me, that kind of stuff. Yeah, so that's how I learned things like that most orange cats are male and most calicos are female and things like that.
See, we're getting our cat audience in here already.
Exactly.
All right, let's get into it. I was checking out your website earlier because, I have to do my research.
Of course.
And tell me about the Destination Murder series. What brought that into your brain?
A couple things. So I worked for about 20 years as the editor of a travel industry magazine. The fun part of that was that I got to go on a lot of trips. So, and the way the industry works is hotels and destinations invite you somewhere to check it out. So whether it's a hotel or it's a city or whatever. And one of the things I enjoyed doing on my trips was finding a local bookstore and finding a book set there to read on the plane home. And I found that mysteries are especially good to do that for because they tend to be about place. We went here and then we went here and then we went here. And if you're visiting a place for the first time, that's so fun to be able to read it on the way home, to do all those things. The other thing that came about was I was invited on this one trip that started at the Algonquin Hotel in New York City. And then we were taking these restored train cars up to Montreal and then over to Portland, Maine. So the first night of the trip, we're sitting at the round table at the Algonquin Hotel, the famous round table where all the writers sat. And on these kind of press trips is what they call them. There was about 10 of us from all over the place. And one of the people on the press trip was one of the most obnoxious people I've ever met. And so I'm like, oh my God, we have to spend 4 days and on trains and in hotels with this person, and I'm not sure what I'm going to do. So I went upstairs to my room at the end and I called my husband and I said, oh my God, this person is so obnoxious. So if there's a murder on the train, we know who it will be. And I thought, that's actually kind of a fun idea for a book series because the thing about these press trips is you're thrown together with these people. And, it's kind of like the Agatha Christie's where they're all thrown into the manor house, right? And then one of them drops dead, but they all have reasons to do it. That's kind of what these trips are like. So I'm like, this would be a great, an idea for a mystery series. So I love mysteries myself. So I kind of combined my knowledge of the travel industry with my love of mysteries.
Wow. That's pretty, that's pretty awesome. It's, you know what? While I'm on these trips, what about some, and you got to give credit to your husband. He's, what if there was a murder?
Whenever you're thrown together with a group of people, let's face it, there's usually one of them you would like to kill, or, oops, did you stand too close to that cliff and happen to fall off? I'm so sorry.
Yeah. The police are like, what happened here? The wind blew too hard and they just fell over. I don't know.
Sure, it wasn't me. So,
yeah. Are you at all like a Hallmark movies and mysteries fan?
I do. I really enjoy them. I think they do a really nice job. They do.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love the Hallmark movies and mysteries. I specifically got like the Hallmark subscription through my Amazon Prime so I could watch all of the movies and mysteries.
Oh, fun. That's a good idea. We just have it just regularly through the cable, but if we ever pull the cord, as it were, then I would probably do that. Because they're fun. They do a really nice job. They're fun, and I've noticed some of the newer ones are starting to add that travel aspect. Where they go somewhere, because again, I think they're both kind of vicarious things. It's fun to travel somewhere new, and then it's kind of fun to solve a puzzle or a mystery or something along the way.
Yeah, that's so awesome.
Yeah. So the destinations I've picked, I try to pick places that I've done three of the books, places I know well, that I can really describe well. But what I tend to do is create kind of a fictional place within the real place. So they all begin and end in Carmel, which is one of my favorite places in the world. So I have the characters based in Carmel, California. But the first one takes place in Maui, which I've just always really loved and been a lot of times. So I knew I could capture it accurately. And then the second one takes place in Monterey, kind of in and around that whole Monterey Peninsula near Carmel. And then the third one that just came out this summer takes place in Lake Tahoe at a ski resort, like a renovated ski resort lodge in Lake Tahoe. And naturally it gets snowed in and people start disappearing.
So it's like Clue.
A little bit, yes, yeah. And then I throw in everything I've ever done at a winter ski resort, on a press trip. So they go snowshoeing and dog sledding and skiing and everything I can think of that they do. So
that's awesome.
Yeah,
I'm gonna have to get on Amazon and get these books, because I'm trying to get more into mystery books. I'm all about the rom-coms, as you can see behind me, but I've been trying to get more into mysteries, and I feel like I think some of the ones that I've been trying to read are just they're a little maybe too dark.
Mine are very light. Mine are very, Hallmark style. I always say they're great, like weekend reads. And that's what a lot of people have told me. It's, you can finish them in a weekend, and they're light and they're travel logs. And then there's a murder thrown in, but it's not gruesome. I mean,
yes,
that's the thing about mysteries, is they can range from, very years ago, I used to be a reader for film companies, and they had me read Silence of the Lambs, which that book is just, oh my, this is very graphic, Yes. And then there's mine, which the violence tends to be very, not too graphic. Yes.
I love that. That is my exact cup of tea. Since we're talking about writing and all of that fun stuff, I am also a writer, and I've heard this a few times, and I thought it's a funny way to phrase it. Are you as a writer, are you a planner or a pantser?
I'm kind of what they call a plantser, which is kind of a little mix of both. Especially with the mysteries, I know the beginning and the end. And I heard someone once say this, and I thought it was a great tip, which is you kind of start with the confession of the killer, right? What does that scene look like of your person confessing why they did it? Yeah. And then you work backwards. So I tend to know, how it's going to start and then how it's going to end. And then I have basic plot points that I know I'm going to hit, but then I also sometimes it's like, where do I do now? Oh, let's just throw this in. Let's just see. And that, sometimes you run into a brick wall doing that, but sometimes it leads to a path. You're like, oh, phew, I made it out, so.
Oh yeah. I totally get that. Since we're on, we're just going to keep talking about writing, because I find people who can actually sit down and write a book and actually get it published so fascinating.
Right.
Because I've been trying to do that forever, and it takes me such a long time to do anything. So what do you do when you get stuck writing?
One of the things I do two, I would say two things that I can think of. One is, if you're just home and doing stuff, I thought for some reason vacuuming helps. I don't know why. I'm stuck here. Let's just vacuum the apartment, and it jogs your memory a little bit. But there are times that I need to take myself out of town. And I do. And luckily my husband understands that. I'm always like, going to go work in the submarine for 3 weeks, but, for 3 days, but I'll take myself like off, rent a place, or usually I have family members who let me go stay at their places and spend the 3 days only in the world of the book. you know, because when you're home, there's just so many distractions from the lovely kitties to, oh, I should be doing this around the house, and, you know, and other things you should be doing. And so when you take yourself out of that environment and just put yourself somewhere else for 3 days, you can just say, I'm just living in the world of the book for, you know, 24 hours a day. And that a lot of times opens up stuff, and it allows me just to start going, and it starts flowing out.
Maybe I should. My cat would hate it if I started vacuuming, but
that's true.
That is not his favorite thing for me to do, next to using the dishwasher.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah.
Let's see. So you've got, I see on your website, you've got the 3 destination mystery books, and then you also have the University Chronicles.
Yes. Yeah. And there's only one book to that. What happened was I had written that. It's called, the book is called The War Council.
Yes.
And so essentially, and I had written that actually a number of years ago. And then I got the job as the editor at the travel magazine, and it went up on the shelf. But it was essentially came from my years in graduate school. And so that's why it's set at a university. But so it's essentially this woman who has a horrible breakup and decides that it doesn't make sense to her. It doesn't make sense why the guy left. It didn't. So she decides that she wants to make love more logical. So she's a communications professor at a university, and she says, why don't we create like a paramilitary relationship counseling service that you could hire to make your relationship work the way you'd like? Kind of like if you hired the team from Mission Impossible, right? You know, I'm going to hire this team to come in. And so she recruits people at the university, from one of, you know, her friend who's one of the psychologists, to, you know, the sociology professor and the rugby coach and the film professor and the society. And they all represent different kind of aspects of love. And then they recruit this young college girl who's just broken up, and it's their test case, and they help try to make love logical. But in the meantime, her friend, the psychologist, hates the idea and decides to use it against the main character by setting her up with someone using those same tactics. And kind of, you know, so the theme is that love isn't logical. It's never meant to be logical, but, you know, so it's just kind of a fun satiric rom-com look at love. So I had written that, and I was shopping it around while I was starting to work on the murder mysteries. And my publisher, it's called Four Horsemen Publications, they said, we love this book, but we only sign our authors who will agree to write series for us, because we feel like series sell. And so that's their business model. And so I said, I also have this other idea for these murder mysteries. They're like, so great. So they published The War Council, and then I started working on the murder mysteries. But the book I'm currently working on is actually going to be a sequel to The War Council, and it's called The Italy Affair. And I have the communications professor go on one of those, you know, universities have these alumni association travel companies that send people on trips. So she accompanies a trip to Italy, and hijinks abound, and, you know, all sorts of fun things happen.
That's awesome. That sounds me going on your website to buy all of your books.
I appreciate that.
I mean, there is something to be said about being a writer, and you write these things because they're so close to your heart, and you don't want anyone to read them. What made you want to put your stories out into the world for people to see?
That's a good question. I had a friend years ago who said, he goes, I think you write to figure things out. And in some ways, I think that's still the case. Again, the War Council was me also at the time going, you know, why are so many people unhappy in love? You know, I had been through things, and I'm like, what if we could make it easy? Let me work through that using these characters. So that came out of that one. So I think, it's me wanting to share, I guess, the way I see the world a little bit with people. It can be hard. I mean, it's gotten easier now that I have, you know, 4 books out. When the War Council first came out, there's this moment of, I'm sending my child out into the world. Maybe not. Maybe they're not ready. You know what I mean? So it's just, sometimes it takes a little time to go, okay, you know what? It's out there. This is how I feel about things. So I hope other people agree or enjoy.
Yeah. I think that's what a lot of writers do, though. Like, even if you don't publish, like, you're writing because you have something pent up inside of you that you're like, I can't get this out any other way besides writing it down.
But yeah, exactly. Yeah. And the fun thing about fiction is you can hide it, you know, in lots of different characters. Because a lot of people will look, I know you're X in the book. And I'm like, a little bit, but I'm also in a lot of people that you have no idea that I'm in, that are representing some way I've thought, or something I've thought, or some way of looking at things that I'm going to hide in characters that may, you know, you wouldn't necessarily assume might be, you know, closer to me than they are.
I mean, is it even a book that you wrote if some of the characters don't have some of your traits?
Exactly. They have to think a little bit like me. Exactly.
What books are you reading right now?
What books am I reading? What did I just read? I've been reading because again, I love mysteries, and this next book that is set in Italy. So Donna Leone has a great series of books, mysteries set in Venice, Italy, with Commissario Brunate is her main character. And so they're fun because, and again, like I said, like a lot of mysteries, they're mysteries, but they're also about place. They're about Italy and the way Italy works, and sometimes, you know, maybe the corruption, or, you know, how certain people run things. And so certain crimes get maybe swept under the, you know, carpet a little bit. So it's a fascinating look at how Italian life works while also being fun mysteries. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. She's written a lot. I think there's 30 of them. There's a lot of them. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I know, it's daunting.
I couldn't imagine. Some authors that I'm like, where do you find the time to write that many books?
Yeah, it's just one at a time. You know what I mean? It's over a long period of time, obviously. Yeah.
So besides you and besides the author you just named, what other books or authors would you recommend that people read?
I've always been a huge fan of Sue Grafton. She writes the alphabet mysteries. A is for alibi, B is for burglary, C is for, and she unfortunately passed away a few years ago. And so the last book was Y. I think she didn't quite make it to Z.
Oh.
Yeah, so she's really fun. I love her books. There's, again, a lot of them I've picked up on my travels. There's, when I go to Lake Tahoe every year, there's a guy named Todd Borg who has a series of mysteries set up at Lake Tahoe. It's like a former cop who's a private eye, but his sidekick is this Harlequin Great Dane, which is always very, that's really, anytime you have a dog in a mystery, it's always very fun. So that's good. So his books I enjoy. There's a guy named CJ Box who writes a series out of kind of the Wyoming, Yellowstone area. So those are fun. So yeah, those are a few that I've enjoyed.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
And are you a Kindle, paper, like physical book, or audiobook person?
I would probably, my favorite is the paperback and paper, but I do read some of them on ebook. Yeah, because when especially if you're traveling, ebooks are so great because there's so many you can have on there that don't weigh too much in your suitcase. You know? Yeah. I'm much more of a visual person, so I love reading books. But I know people who love audio, and I have to say the woman that my publisher got to do the audiobooks for the Destination Murder Mysteries did a wonderful job. Her name was Lauren Davis, and she really she captured it so well and had me laughing in places. You know what I mean? I'm like, oh my God, that's so funny. I love it.
Yeah. It's always more, I love physical books and Kindles and stuff like that, but there's just sometimes if I'm reading a book that I can't get into, but I'm like, I know I would love this. Sometimes I have to listen to it, and I'm just like, okay, all right, I'm in it. I'm immersed into it. And it's just so fun to hear how much fun the voice actor is having reading.
Yeah, they do a great job. I mean, I enjoyed listening to my books and I've written them. You know, I'm like, this is so fun. Oh my God, she really captured that voice well. And, you know, so that she did a great job. Yeah.
Since you've written a series, you're still working on a series. Which book is your favorite that you've written, and which book was the hardest one that you've written?
That's an interesting question. I mean, I know a lot of authors say the most recent one is always their favorite, you know, that you've just been through. But I do have, I think the first of the Destination Murder Mysteries, the Destination Maui, only because it sets up the whole world that I've been carrying with me for a long time. The War Council was probably the hardest one I did, and I did that over a much longer period of time. You know, it's easier to forget looking back how hard that was to get out of my system and make work. But I think it probably took the most effort, especially because it was over a longer period. Once you kind of get a rhythm going, they do start to get easier to come out. I mean, there's still always that period where you're like, oh my God, is this just the biggest piece of garbage ever? You know what I mean? It's like, I always kind of, my metaphor that I like to use is like you're sculpting a big piece of marble, you know, and you've got this thing and you're chipping away. And there's a period where it just is the ugliest piece of marble you've ever seen in your life. You're like, can I make this work? Am I going to be able to pull this together? But now I've done it enough that I'm like, no, you are. You're going to just keep going and it's all going to come together. Don't worry about it. So it's just having to, and it's usually right at around like the 2/3 to 3/4 part of that first draft. You're just like, oh, I need to get here and I'm almost here and I just need these pieces to connect. And they're not connecting right now. So how do I make this leap? And once you get through that, you're like, okay, the rewriting is always the most fun part of every book, I think, personally.
Yeah.
That's when it's fun, because it's like you're reading your favorite book over and over and over again, because you've created this thing that obviously you like, because otherwise why would you write it?
Yeah.
And now you're getting to play with it. So it's fun.
Oh, yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. Do you know when the second University Chronicles book is going to be coming out? So
the second University Chronicles book will be out next summer. So nice. I'm turning it in a month and a half. So keep your fingers crossed. I'm at that part where I'm like,
don't connect, I promise.
Exactly. Come on. Got all these puzzle pieces, and it's those last few that are the hardest. But yeah, it'll be called the Italy Affair University Chronicles Book 2, and it'll come out next summer. And then the most recent book in the Destination Murder Mysteries, Destination Lake Tahoe, that just came out this past summer. So, and it's available as well. So, and my uncle, who's never not effusive about my books, but he was like, I think it's a good yarn. I'm like, I like that, a good yarn. Okay, I'll take that, Uncle Don.
It's always good when the men in your family are like, that's a good job. Like,
that's a good job. The funniest thing too about the War Council, and I even had a friend, you know, an author I know who gave me a really nice review on Amazon, said this. He says, this is a chick book, but I really liked it. And men actually, I think, liked it better. And I had a friend who goes, of course they did, because it was giving them the female perspective that they don't get. You know what I mean? It's because it's about women trying to say, okay, why can't this work the way I want it to work? And but I thought that was fairly funny. I'm like, okay, that's interesting. That it's not necessarily the target market, but I'll take it.
Hey, man, I think the world would be a way better place if men would read rom-coms.
Exactly.
I'm like, come on, guys, we're literally giving you the blueprint right here. And, you know, where can we find you?
You can find me at annshepphird.com. The last name is spelled a little weird. It's Shepphird. Yes, bad spelling ancestor, and we're all with the name. No, we can't. It's so far back, no one even knows where it came from. So it's annshepphird.com or Shepphird on Instagram and most other socials.
Okay. All right. And thank you so much for hanging out with me in the Can't Commit to a Book Club. Next summer, when your book comes out, let me know and we can get on here and chat about it.
Okay, that sounds great. All right. Thanks so much for having me on.
Thanks for watching my video, friend. I hope you enjoyed watching it as much as I enjoyed doing it. For more interviews like this one, please make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/KJ Today. And if you want to read my book reviews, you can check them out at kjontheair.com.